Kate's in the kitchen, and you're invited too. I'm Kate, and this is my kitchen. It's almost summertime, and that usually means lightening up the menu. So today I'm going to make a light, delicious, and fairly easy dessert, an Italian lemon ricotta cake. I've got 1.5 cups of sugar and 1.5 cups of flour. I did sift the flour. I've got 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. I'm going to use a pinch of salt, 3 large eggs at room temperature, 1 15-ounce carton of ricotta, 3/4 of a cup of room temperature butter, that's a stick and a half, and then I've got the zest and juice of a lemon and a lime. And I'm going to use about 4 tablespoons of the juice and all the zest. So that comes out to about a tablespoon of lemon zest and about a teaspoon of lime zest. I've got a 9-inch springform pan that I sprayed with baking spray, and I lined it with a parchment circle, and then I sprayed it again. I want to make sure this cake does not stick, although the springform pan does help it come out more easily. I'm going to start by creaming the butter and the sugar, and you want to really whip this until it's light and completely combined. It's going to take about 5 minutes to do this, so I'm just going to come back when it's done. I've got the butter and the sugar completely creamed. I'm going to add the entire carton of ricotta, and I'm going to whip that for another 5 minutes. We want this to be light and fluffy before we add any other ingredients. About midway through, you want to give this a scrape down to make sure that there's no butter left on the sides of the bowl. And at this time, you can also preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And we're going to be putting this on the middle rack. Another 2.5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes. I'm going to add the eggs next, 1 egg at a time, and make sure it gets thoroughly incorporated. It's very important that your butter, your eggs, your ricotta are at room temperature. They will combine much more smoothly. This is a general rule in baking, not just for this cake. And that's coming together beautifully. I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon or so of my lemon extract and a full teaspoon of my vanilla. Then I'm going to measure out and add about 4 tablespoons total of the juice. That made 1 tablespoon of lime. 1, 2, yeah, just right on the money there. 3 tablespoons of lemon. I'm going to add the zest. And that's all combined. I'm going to add my baking soda and a pinch of salt. I don't need a lot of salt because I did use salted butter. I'm going to add the flour about 1/2 cup at a time. Number 1, so we don't get a flour explosion, but also it will combine better than if I just dump it all in. We don't want to overmix this, so we're just going to let this go until it's just mixed in, and then add the next. And you're going to need to scrape down the sides again. And the last of our flour. Okay, that's come together very nicely. I'm going to go ahead and scrape off the paddle here and scrape down the sides one more time. And by hand, I'm going to stir in any flour that hasn't incorporated yet. I want to keep this batter tender, so the cake is tender. Beautiful batter. I can really smell the zest. I'm going to pour the batter into this prepared pan and smooth it out so the cake comes out level. And then we're going to bake it in a 350-degree oven for about 45 minutes, but I will go in at about 30 minutes and rotate it, because I find even a brand new oven, they never bake completely even. So I tend to rotate all my baked goods. So I'm just getting it up to the sides here, smoothing it out. The cake has been out of the oven about 15 minutes. It's still quite warm, but I'm going to release the spring form. That came out beautifully. And I'm going to let this cool completely, and then we'll continue on assembling this cake. The cake is cooled, so I'm going to make the topping for this cake. I have my bowl and my whisk in the freezer chilling. I'm going to take about a cup. I've got heavy whipping cream. It's very thick. And I'm going to get that started. And then to that, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. It's not really for the sweetness, it's to make this whipped topping stand up. Start it slow, let it incorporate, and then I'm going to whip it quite well. Okay, I've got my cream all whipped. It's very thick. Don't whip it too long because you'll end up with butter. But we want it quite thick because we're going to jazz it up a little. I've got some lime curd. Now I do sometimes make my own lemon or lime curd, but today I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to put in about 1/2 cup of this. And I'm not going to whip it in, I'm just going to fold it in. So we're going to have some delicious tart and sweet, almost like a frosting. Okay, I've got that nice and combined. I'm going to put this into the refrigerator so it stays nice and firm. I don't want the air to come out of the whipped cream. And then we'll continue on. The cake is just about cooled, but I know that it's still warm inside, which is what I want. So I'm going to split this, hopefully as evenly as I can. Now you could bake this in 2 round cake pans, but I find that gets a little dry sometimes. I prefer to bake it in one. I've got my lemon curd and I'm loosening it up a bit. I'm going to spread a very thin layer on the cake. I want it to melt in. So I'm just going to spread this around. And you notice I put it back onto the spring-form pan bottom. And there's a reason for that. We'll get to it in just a minute. So if you just give it a little stir up, it'll be a little less tight and it'll spread a little better. So let me finish putting this lemon, almost like a glaze, on here, and then we will continue on. The warmth that's still in the cake has not melted but really softened up this lemon curd, so now it's spreading very easily. I don't need to add any more. And then I'm just going to let this sit until it is completely cool this time. After I split the cake, I actually did put a cardboard cake disc on there because I'm going to put this back on, and this will hold it together as I'm assembling this. And then I can chill it in the fridge, in the ring form. So, our next step is going to be adding some lime curd. And because this is cool now, the lime curd's not going to melt as much, and I don't want it to, and you'll see why in a moment. So we're just going to spread this all around. Got a thin layer of lemon and a thicker layer of lime. And since this is almost empty, I'm just going to use up the rest of this jar. This was a 12-ounce jar. So that's what it looks like at this point. Now comes the surprise part. When you cut into this, people won't know it's there until you cut in. I've got a pint of fresh raspberries, and I'm just going to stand them up, and I'm going to push them down into the curd as best I can. I'm going to reserve a few for on top for decoration. Actually, I'll have quite a few left. So I've got those in there. I'm going to set these aside. I'm going to fill in the gaps here with some of our whipped cream. Just got to spread carefully to keep those raspberries where you put them. And then I'll reserve the rest of the cream for the top as our frosting, so to speak. So I'm going to continue on this, get it all set up, and then we'll finish the cake. I've got the cream spread all the way out to the edges. I'm going to put the top on, hopefully without breaking it. There we go. And even if it does crack a little, you're going to be covering it with the rest of the cream anyhow. So I'm going to cover this with the rest of our cream and then put it in the refrigerator for at least an hour. And then I will decorate it with the raspberries that are remaining and perhaps some lemon or lime slices, whatever you like. I'd like to say I'm going to wait for my family to come home, but that would not be very truthful. I can't wait to taste this. So, and the first piece is always the hardest one to get out. Look at the inside here, our hidden raspberries here and there. There we have it, our Italian lemon ricotta cake. Now this cake is great. You can substitute any fruit you want. Peaches would be great in here, or nectarines. You can leave out the zest and just make it a plain cake and put perhaps the cream and some chopped nuts in there, or chocolate chips even. You could do mango and lime. Time for the moment of truth. The cake is so light and tender. The frosting is not sweet because we only had that 1/4 cup of powdered sugar in there, and then we added the curd, so that tamped down the sweetness even more. So it's just light and citrusy and delicious. I'm gonna go finish this.